Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Sunday, so happy Sunday to everyone. Thanks for dropping by and spending some time with me. I'm Christy, and go ahead and give this a like if you would. I would appreciate it. And there's Steve. He's got opinions about this case, you guys. Today we're going to talk about Julie Nagel, her brother Ryan, Ricky D'Antano, and Heather Maxson. They were all in the truck together when they came to pick Julie up at the Albert's house. And there was a random dog DNA person that was called out of order. So we're going to cover her testimony as well. I'm glad to see so many of you commenting and appreciating my breakdowns and graphics, because it helps me to visualize it. And you can see this notebook is full. I've got notebooks, plural. I watch every day. I take really detailed notes, and then I go back through them, make these presentations for you, and then try to find the time to upload the videos. So it's a lot of work, but I think it's worth it, especially in a case like this where it feels like there's so much that we don't know and there's so many witnesses. One thing is for sure, it's made me a believer that eyewitness testimony isn't always the best because there's so many discrepancies. But by keeping this notebook and doing these videos, it's kind of helping to keep track of who said what and who agrees and who disagrees, and why might they say something different? Does it benefit them? So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Julie Nagel. Now, she was at the Alberts for Brian Jr.'s birthday. She lives in Canton. She's lived there her whole life with her parents. She has two older brothers, Ryan, who's 31, and Sam, who's 27. She works for a car rental agency for a year and a half, and she went to high school with Brian Jr. He was one grade below her. Okay, so she said that she arrived at Brian Jr.'s house at 6 p.m. Sarah Levinson said they arrived between 7 and 8. She doesn't mention anything about being at McCarthy's or anywhere before going, so kind of keep that in mind as we go along. Her dad drove her and Sarah to Brian Jr.'s house. Her and Sarah, they've known each other since middle school. So the time thing, nobody's really paying that close of attention. I mean, you're not expecting that you're going to have to recall details on a night that you're just expecting to go hang out with your friends. So, maybe it's not that big of a deal. So we'll just say somewhere between 6 and 8 they got there. She said the plan that night was to hang out with Brian Jr., have some drinks for his birthday. Nothing exciting. They were planning to stay in. She said Courtney Alba, Catherine Duty, Emily Fabiano, and Mary Kent joined early part of the night, and that Colin Albert joined later. She said that she knew them through Brian Jr. They were all a class below her, and she was closer to Brian Jr. than she was to that group of girls. She says that Colin arrived after the 4 girls. They were in the dining room, kitchen area, and no one left that area except to go to the bathroom. She said they got food ordered from D&E, of course, because his uncle owns it. And she said music was being played on overhead speakers in the ceiling. We've heard before it was on a Bluetooth speaker. Again, I don't know if it matters, but it was brought up, so I included it. The 4 girls and Colin left before midnight. Colin left at 11:30 to 11:45. She says that she saw him leave. She's the first one. He got picked up a little after midnight. He left through one of the front doors. Now, the only thing that's a little hinky with that is she says he left between 11:30 and 11:45, and then in her next statement says that he was picked up a little after midnight. Now, we've got this blizzard coming in. I don't think he was outside waiting for that long, but it is what it is. That's what she said. So, a little after midnight, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Matt McCabe, Jen McCabe, and Brian Higgins arrived. And then she said, oh, and Caitlin. She knew Jen and Matt through Brian Jr. She says that she didn't know Brian Higgins prior to that night. Everyone was in the kitchen, dining room area. Caitlin was playing music on her phone through the overhead speakers, and she left at 1:45 a.m. Brian Albert went upstairs to let the dog out. She said some people were at the table and some were at the kitchen island. She was in the corner and could see the front door. She says no one else came in. She didn't know John O'Keefe or Karen Reed. Jen McCabe, Sarah Levinson, and Caitlin Albert were all at the table with her. She said that she texted her brother Ryan to see if he could pick her up, and that was at about 12:15. When Ryan got there, he texted her. She went out the front door. People said, just have your brother come in. Her brother was in the passenger seat. His friend Ricky was driving, and Ryan's girlfriend at the time, Heather Maxson, was in the back seat, and they all decided that they didn't want to go in. So Ricky's F-150 was parked at the end of the driveway, and she says they talked through the passenger window. She noticed another vehicle before her brother pulled up. It was a black SUV that she had never seen before. She talked to her brother for 3 minutes max. Matt and Jen McCabe offered to drive her home if she didn't want to leave. Sarah Levinson rode with them too. The black SUV wasn't there when her brother was there. I remember that. She noticed it when she was inside. She saw it pull in front of the mailbox, and then it pulled up a little in the front of the yard and stopped. Then it pulled up again in front of the flagpole. She was at the dining room table looking out the window. No one got out of the SUV. There was a dusting of snow. She doesn't recall seeing any tracks and didn't see anyone inside the SUV. So here again, we have a graphic of what Julie says she saw. I don't have the truck in the picture because she says she saw this before her brother got there. So first position, right in front of the mailbox. I've got a circle around the window that she was looking out of. Second, right in front of the house. Third, closer to the flagpole. Now, we're going to compare that to what Brian Jr. saw. He said Ryan's truck was parked in front of the driveway. The SUV, they still have it basically in the same place. He saw the tracks. She did not. He didn't see it when it was right in front of the house. He saw it pull forward closer to the flagpole, as did she. So this kind of helps you visualize the differences in what they testified to. I hope that helps you a little bit. So when she came back in, everyone was at the dining room area. When she left, she went out the front door and got in Jen McCabe's car in the driveway. Matt was driving. Jen was in the passenger seat. She was behind Matt, and Sarah's behind Jen. Jen was turned around looking at them towards the center of the vehicle, looking at the back seat. They had the whole PB&J and a loaf of bread in the car conversation. She's facing Sarah, and Sarah's facing her. She noticed a black blob behind Jen and Sarah on the ground near the flagpole as they're driving by. It was close to the street, but in the lawn close to the flagpole is how she describes the location. She says out loud that she saw something, and then she says she was intoxicated, so she didn't know what it was. Sarah said, "What?" She said, "I don't know what it was." And that was the end of the conversation. Now she says it was 5 or 6 feet long. And now we've got the points made on cross. On January 28th, she arrived at 6 to 7 p.m., according to her, and stayed until 1:45 a.m. She only went outside when her brother arrived. Trooper Proctor did not interview her until October of 2022 about the details of January 29th, instead of asking her shortly thereafter when her memory would have been fresh. So she has discussed what happened with Sarah Levinson. She says Brian Jr. is a good close friend. She's driven the McCabe kids around and pet sat their golden doodle Bailey at their home, and she calls Jen McCabe by the nickname JJ. Brian Albert maintained control of Chloe by holding her collar from upstairs through the kitchen. She says she never went in the basement and that she saw Colin leave at 11:30 to 11:45, but didn't watch him walk out the door. So again, she didn't really see him leave. She says that she texted her brother. It was between 12:15 and 12:20 a.m. Jen McCabe asked her for a screenshot of her text with her brother, which immediately I'm like, why the hell does Jen McCabe need screenshots of her text with her brother? But she sent them to her, but she didn't provide the screenshot to any investigator. The first time she said the object she saw on the lawn was 5 to 6 feet long was that day when Lally asked her how big it was. She had never testified to the length before. She's always said a black blob, a black object, but never the size until that day when Lally asked. She didn't think it was a body at the time, but she says she put 2 and 2 together when Brian Jr. called her the next morning. Even after putting 2 and 2 together that, oh my gosh, I saw John O'Keefe, she didn't call Canton PD or the state police to tell them. I don't know. What do you think? If she saw something, I would think when you hear like, oh my gosh, it must have been him, most people would think to call and tell somebody. Or you would think when she told Brian Jr. and he told his family that they would have said, oh, she needs to let the investigators know. But I don't know. Maybe her brain doesn't work that way. I don't know. I thought it was kind of odd. I'm not going to lie. Let's see. Now we've got... Oh, and also I had made a note. Why didn't Jen McCabe bring up what Julie Nagel saw, the blob, when they found John O'Keefe? If she had said in the car, remember, Jen's looking at her, Jen, and Sarah, they're all talking, and Julie suddenly says, what was that? Why didn't Jen say, holy crap, Julie saw something when we drove by last night? But she didn't. It's just another one of those things. So now we have Terry Coon. She's the random person that I said got called out of order. I thought they were going to qualify her as an expert because they were going over like her whole CV and everything. but they never qualified her as an expert witness. Maybe they don't do that in Massachusetts. I don't know. But from all of her qualifications, I got the gist that she is an expert in what she does. So she works at the UC Davis Veterinary Genetics Lab Forensics Unit. She's a forensic scientist, DNA technical lead. Her UC classification is SRA4, which is Staff Research Associate. She's been doing that for 25 years. Like I said, they went over her whole CV. She explains what DNA is and how to get a sample. She explains their standard operating procedures at their lab. In this case, she said that she received 2 swabs, and she shows the photos of evidence, and I was like, holy cow, the Massachusetts State Police Crime Lab knows how to package evidence and use evidence tape and mark things with property numbers. I mean, wow, what a difference from Canton PD. So these swabs, she was told, were taken from a shirt. Now, they did not have the shirt, and they don't have anything saying these swabs came from this location on the shirt. So, like, if they had swabbed right here, there was nothing to indicate this came from, the left shoulder, top of sleeve, or anything like that. Nothing. Just that they were from a shirt. There was no canine DNA on the swabs tested, but she did find pig DNA on what they call a meat ID, and they do that I forget, I think she said 12 maybe, but there's different species of animal that they can pick up what the DNA is from. She said, though, it could be from food, like cooked pork, ham, bacon, anything like that. So we don't know where the pig DNA came from. Now, points made on cross, the actual clothing was not sent, only the swabs. So the lab has to assume that proper collection techniques were used because they didn't oversee the collection. It's important to maintain evidence logs and chain of custody, using the witness to show how bad the evidence collection and handling was by the Canton PD. She explains that plastic encourages mold and bacterial growth, solo cups. Dirt and blood are inhibitors as well as clothing dye, but they were not told about blood or dye on the shirt. She explained that inhibitors stop the PCR process from happening, which equals no results. And then they talked about the absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. So she's not saying there was no canine DNA on the shirt. It just wasn't on the swabs. So there could have been DNA like here, but if they swabbed here, obviously it's not going to show up. She said the pig DNA could come from dog treats like pig's ears. She said that dog claws are not a good source of DNA, because some people have said the marks on his arm, if they weren't bites, maybe they were from claws, but claws aren't a good source of DNA because they're just like our fingernails. They're made of keratin, which is dead cells, but saliva is a rich source of DNA. She said that you'd have to have the actual claw and basically destroy it, grind it down to extract the DNA from it. And then I thought it was really funny. There were a few questions from the defense that were overruled. One of them intimated that the person that collected the evidence swabs from the shirt actually failed her certification, and they wouldn't allow that in So she's technically, I guess, not qualified to be doing what she was doing. And then he asked her a question, and I have a clip that I want to play for you right now because I thought it was very funny. Like I said, they were using this witness, the defense was, just to show you how bad Canton PD screwed up.
Why?
Would you put biological material in non-sterile containers?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
We don't have, everything that we use is sterile. All of our tubes that we would use, or once we do a collection, we put it in a tube for the extraction process.
Okay, why
Those
is it
tubes are
sterile?
autoclaved and they don't have contamination. They are sterile.
Why?
You would use a solo cup.
I'm sorry, what?
Objection, Your Honor.
Solo cup.
The objection sustained.
That was the point. I'm sorry, what? Her reaction was just so earnest. It's just...
I love Emily D. Baker. If you haven't watched any of her trial coverage, you should definitely check her out. She's a riot. She has the same reactions a lot of time that I do, because I'll watch her. I watch the trial, and then after I'll watch her coverage and some other people's coverage, and just kind of make sure I didn't miss anything. Sorry, still dealing with the pneumonia. And I like to see if the way I interpreted things is the way that other people interpreted it. And then if I am thinking about it wrong, I want to make sure that I put that in my notes. So when I tell you, I can say, well, I thought this, but it may have been this. So anyway, like I said, a lot of times I'm watching the trial and I'm like screaming at the screen, different things. And she has a lot of the same opinions and reactions as I do. And I always feel quite validated in my opinion after watching her. Okay, so now we're going to move on from the dog lady to Ryan Nagel, who is Julie's brother. Let me get caught up in my notes. Sorry, it's a lot, you guys. It is a lot. Some days are worse than others, but wow. Okay, so Ryan Nagel. There we go. Ryan Nagel lives in Canton for 30 years. He lives with his girlfriend and son, and he's a union HVAC worker. On January 28th, he went to CF McCarthy's, which is where, if you remember, John and Karen started their night with Michael Camerano and Kurt Roberts. So they went to CF McCarthy's with his girlfriend at the time, Heather Maxson, and a friend, Ricky, that he's known since 6th grade. They went there, he says, to meet up with his sister, Julie Nagel. Now, Julie didn't mention this. So like I said, I don't know, did Julie start out at CF McCarthy's? Like, I don't know, because she didn't mention it. All she said was her dad drove her and Sarah to Brian Jr.'s. He says they were at a table by the bathrooms at 7 to 8 p.m., but Julie said she was at Brian Jr.'s at 6 or 7, but Sarah said 7 to 8. So, I don't know. It's just another one of those little discrepancies that maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. So they were there for 2 to 3 hours, and then they went to Hillside, which is a 10-minute drive, and met one friend. They were there about an hour, and they left around 12 a.m. He said Julie, his sister, texted him for a ride home from Brian Jr.'s house. He said he knew the street, but not the house number, that he'd been there to pick her up before. She said she wasn't in a hurry, just when you get a sec, can you pick me up and take me home? So they took their time. About 40 minutes after her text is when they left Hillside to go get her. Hillside to Fairview is about a 5 to 7 minute drive. Now, this is where things start to get cuckoo. So on the way to Fairview, he sees a black SUV coming up the hill towards them, but he doesn't recognize it. At the intersection of Cedar Crest and Fairview, he said, Ricky has his left blinker on. The SUV has its right blinker on. Ricky let the SUV go first. The SUV went to Fairview facing the same way as them, with the passenger side facing the house. Ricky was parked in front of the driveway, and the SUV was like 1 or 2 car lengths in front of them. He said no one got out of the SUV, that he texted Julie when they were at Cedar Crest, almost here, come out. He said Julie came out about 2 minutes after they got there. He says she came out the side door. Julie said she came out the front door. And to me, the side door makes more sense because if you walk out that side door, you're right at the driveway. He says he opened the passenger door because he thought she was going to get it in. And again, she said they talked through the window. He says he opened the door. Does it matter? I don't know. She asked if they wanted to go inside, and Ricky said, maybe we should call it a night. She said she was going to stay a little longer, which I'm wondering, like, why didn't she text him when she decided to stay longer and say, hey, never mind, you guys don't need to swing by here. I'm going to catch a ride with somebody else. But she didn't, and this is what happened. So he watches her go inside, and they left. He said they talked for like 30 to 45 seconds. The SUV brake lights were on. He said he noticed the third brake light. So, you have the two, and then sometimes like in the middle of the back window, you have that one that's up higher. He said that was the one that he noticed. Sorry. It moved up another car length when Julie came out the door, and that was the only time it moved. He said as they go by the SUV, he saw the person inside because they had the interior light on, and it was in the center of the vehicle. He said in the driver's seat, he saw a woman with long hair looking straight ahead, hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. Now remember, Julie testified that she did not see the SUV when she was outside talking to her brother. So here's the intersection. Basically, you've got Cedar Crest going this way, Fairview's up and down. I've got Karen's SUV and Ricky's truck. This is what Ryan says he saw. And then at the house, if you notice, the front door is the one with the lights by it. And then you've got the side door, which is basically right up from the number 1 on the SUV. It would just make more sense to use that door to go to the driveway, but she said front door, he said side door. I've got Ryan's truck parked in front of the driveway where he said it was. I put the SUV there, roughly a car length or so in front of the truck, and then where he said it moved to in the second position. So now we have 3. We've got what Brian Jr. saw, what Julie saw, what Ryan saw. Now remember, Julie didn't see this when she was outside. She saw this from inside the house before her brother got there. Brian Jr. remembers seeing Ryan's truck. And Ryan is outside, and they first saw the SUV at Cedar Crest and were behind it all the way to Fairview, and then saw it park and move. So just so you can, and they didn't see the tracks in the snow. But this kind of helps you, like I said, just kind of compare and contrast who saw what and what lines up and what doesn't. I'm sorry, like I said, pneumonia, it sucks. I don't recommend it. It's weird that Julie says that she saw it, but not when she was outside. But Ryan was only ever outside the house, and he clearly saw it. So now we're going to get a little more, let's see. On Cross, he says that since January 29th, he has not been contacted by the Albert or McCabe families about what occurred. He says that he and Ricky have discussed it because they're best friends, but it didn't change his testimony in any way. He was interviewed by a trooper on February 7th, 2022. He says he doesn't know if it was Proctor, but his partner was Buchanan, so that's Proctor. He told them that Ricky and Heather were in the truck with him. Now remember, he tells them on February 7th, Ricky and Heather were also in the truck. It's going to come up. He was interviewed May 11th, 2023, not by the Commonwealth, and he says, oh, the feds? So I don't know if the jury picked up on it or not, but it's out there. He said they were 3 car lengths from the SUV. It was 20 to 50 feet ahead. There was no vehicle between them and the SUV. He didn't see a Jeep with a plow between them, which would be hard to miss. May 2022, he testified that Julie was out there for 5 minutes versus 45 seconds. He says they slowly pulled away, that they pulled up and around the SUV when they left. And that was pretty much it for Ryan. Next, we hear from Heather Maxson. She lives in Plainville her whole life. She has been a nanny for 4 years. And at the time, she was dating Ryan. They went out to bars with Ryan. She went out to bars with Ryan Nagel and Ricky in Canton in the afternoon. She drove her and Ryan to CF McCarthy's from his house. Ricky drove them to Hillside, and she was in the back seat. They met a group of 2 friends. They left late and went to pick up Julie Nagel, and Ricky drove. She didn't know the friend whose house Julie was at, and she had never been to the house before. She says they turned left onto the street. There was an SUV coming in the opposite direction. So this is the Cedar Crest Fairview again. Ricky let the SUV go first. She said that Ricky flashed his lights at them. She noticed a male and a female in the SUV. The female was driving and the male was in the passenger seat. She said it was a white female with long hair and a white male with short hair. The SUV parked on the street outside the house. She said Ricky parked a little past the mailbox, just a little past the driveway, and the SUV was a couple feet in front of them. She says the SUV stayed still and no one got out. Julie Nagel came out and talked to all 3 of them. She saw Julie go back inside. She said Julie talked for about 3 to 5 minutes. And she didn't want to go in because she was tired and just wanted to go home. The SUV was running and had its lights on. She said the inside light was on and she saw the female in the driver's seat, but she did not see the male passenger. She said the female was just sitting there with the interior light on. So again, at the intersection, it's the same encounter, except she has more detail. Now, remember, she's sitting in the back seat of the truck, but she says that she saw the female driver, white with long hair, and the male passenger, white with short hair, in the SUV. And this is what she saw. We've got Ryan's truck up a little further than we had it previously, and the SUV, and she says it stayed still. It never moved. So now we have 4 to look at, and you can see the differences, the inconsistencies. Let me know in the comments if this is helping you at all, because it helps me for sure. And I'm hoping it'll help you. That's why I take the time to do it. But let me know in the comments if this helps you to kind of visualize what these people are talking about. And then we had, finally, Ricky D'Antano, I believe is how you say it. He lives in Canton his whole life. He does flooring. He's done it for 2 years. He grew up with Ryan Nagel and they're best friends. He drives a dark gray F-150 with 2 front seats and a bench seat in the back. He says they went to C.F. McCarthy's. He met Ryan Nagel and Heather Maxson there. They were there a couple of hours and then went to Hillside, which is a 10-minute drive, and met up with one friend named John. They were at Hillside a few hours and left around midnight to pick up Julie Nagel. Towards the end of the night, he was told he'd be giving her a ride home. Prior to that, he had no clue. Heather, he says, may have laid down in the back seat. He knew the area, but not the exact location. He knew that it was towards the Kennedy School. Ryan told him to turn left on Fairview, and he doesn't recall seeing any vehicles. So the whole thing at Cedar Crest, where Ryan and Heather both saw the SUV, and Heather actually saw the people, he says he didn't see the SUV at all there. Now, when they get to the house, he says there was a vehicle parked in front of him at the house. It was the SUV. The SUV was 10 to 20 yards in front of him. It was running. The tail lights, brake lights were on, and no one got out of the SUV. He says Julie came out quickly after they got there. She talked through the open passenger window, and he says the door was never opened. Again, I don't know if it matters or not, but like I tell you all the time, the devil's in the details, and I've got them, so I've given them to you. He says the conversation lasted about 2 minutes. The SUV stayed in the same spot, and no one got out of the SUV. So this is what he saw. His truck in front of the driveway, the SUV never moved. So now this is kind of Julie. We took Ryan out. We've got Julie, Ryan, Heather, and Ricky are all in the same truck. And this is their memory of what was seen that night. Now, Heather and Ricky are really close other than him not seeing the car at the intersection. She said that he was pulled up a little before the driveway by the mailbox. He recalled being in front of the driveway, and the car never moved, according to both Heather and Ricky. But Ryan says they were in front of the driveway, which checks with Ryan. The first location of the SUV is close, but he says that he saw it move up to a second location. So there you have it. Again, I want you to pop off in the comments with where you're at with this case. I'm still very anxiously awaiting some experts to come and give me details about when do you think he died? What was his cause of death? Is it consistent with being hit by a car? You can't tell me that these people in this neighborhood, no one had a Ring camera. Why can't I see Ring camera footage of the SUV in front of the house, either from the Albert's point of view or somebody across the street? I'm sorry, they're police. The Alberts said that they leave their door unlocked, but you don't have cameras? I don't know. It's kind of a stretch for me, but I live in the middle of nowhere and I've got cameras everywhere. So, but let me know where you're at. Let me know what you're thinking. What are you wanting to see? What do you need to see to get to, yeah, Karen did this? Or have you already seen something that makes you think Karen did this? If you did, tell me, because I haven't seen it yet. We are going into week 5 of testimony, and there's only 1 day of trial this coming week. They said it would be a 6 to 8 week trial. We're going into week 5. It's still the Commonwealth. They have not put on all of their witnesses yet. We have no expert testimony except the random dog DNA lady. There's no way this is done in 6 to 8 weeks. There's no way, because the defense has several witnesses that they're going to call. So this is going to be a while, you guys. We're going to be doing this for a while. So I hope you'll subscribe and come hang out with us, enjoying the discussions that we're having about what we're thinking, what we've seen, things like that. It really matters because, like I said, we're kind of like a jury. And what you think and what I think, they're all going to be discussing how they think to come to their decision. So it's kind of an interesting dialogue we're having back and forth, and I would love to have you as a part of it. So give this a like on your way out if you didn't like it on your way in. Share it with hashtag Karen Reed Trial, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We do more than just this, but right now, this is what I'm focused on because, like I said, all day long, I'm watching the trial. I'm taking all of these notes. Then I'm making these presentations. I'm going over testimony 2-3 different times to make sure that I'm giving you accurate, factual information. And I will get to other things. I will. But like I said, if you don't know, if you're new here, we live on 25 acres in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. We've got chickens, goats, a cow, 14 dogs. I've got a rooster with no feet that lives in the house. We've got rabbits. We've got a pet duck now. It's a lot. And I have all of that and a husband and a daughter to take care of and the Karen Reed trial. So I promise you we'll get to other cases, but right now my mind is just taken over with Karen Reed. I think about it all the time. So thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. I'm so happy you're here. As always, I will see you all in the next one. Bye.